Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Deadtone podcast. We're your hosts,
Jason.
and Amelia.
In this podcast, we'll be delving into the subject matter of paranormal phenomenon, the dark sides of history, and even making question the unknown.
Tune in and enjoy as we get into the subject of Heaven's Gate.
All right, so let's get into it. Heaven's Gate was a U.S.-based UFO religion founded in 1974 by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles. Members believed the human body was merely a container, end quote, for the soul, and that by shedding their early forms, they could board an alien spacecraft and transition to a higher state of evolution. So before we get into any of the specific subject matter regarding his practices later in his life, let's begin with the earlier parts of who exactly is Marshall Applewhite. Marshall Herff Applewhite Jr. was born in Spur, Texas on May 17, 1931, to Marshall Applewhite Sr. and his wife Louise. Applewhite became very religious as a child. Applewhite attended Corpus Christi High School and Austin College. He was active in several student organizations and was moderately religious. He earned a bachelor's degree in philosophy in 1952 and subsequently enrolled at Union Presbyterian Seminary to study theology. Hoping to become a minister, he married Ann Pierce around that time, and they later had 2 children, Mark and Lane. Early in the seminary studies, Applewhite decided to leave the school to pursue a career in music, becoming the music director of Presbyterian Church in North Carolina. He was a baritone singer and enjoyed spirituals and the music of Handel. In 1954, Applewhite was drafted by the United States Army and served in Austria and New Mexico as a member of the Army Signal Corps. He then left the military in 1956 and enrolled at the University of Colorado Boulder, when he earned a master's degree in music and focused on his musical theater career. Applewhite then moved to New York in an unsuccessful attempt to begin a professional singing career upon finishing his education in Colorado. He then taught at the University of Alabama, but Applewhite lost his position there after pursuing a sexual relationship with a male student, as society was not supportive of same-sex relationships during this period. He then separated from his wife when she learned of the affair in 1965. And they later divorced 3 years later. In 1965, after leaving UA, Applewhite moved to Houston to serve as chair of the music department at the University of St. Thomas. So
That's
you can see that he really built up he was really trying to amp up his music career during this time.
Yeah.
And this was before everything with all the events that went down. So it's interesting seeing the early parts of his life and his upbringing before that.
No, yeah, that's very interesting, yeah.
It's a lot, huh?
Oh, yeah, it is a lot. Okay.
Yeah. So
Nice.
he also became a locally popular singer, serving as the choral director of the Episcopal Church. of an Episcopal church and performing with the Houston Grand Opera. But another interesting fact is that the president of the university later recalled that Applewhite was often mentally jumbled and disorganized near the end of his employment. In 1971, Applewhite briefly moved to New Mexico, in which he was popular with customers but decided to return to Texas later that year. Applewhite's father died around that same time. The loss took a significant emotional toll on him, causing severe depression. His debts mounted, leading him to borrow money from friends. In 1972, after that, Applewhite met Bonnie Nettles, a nurse with an interest in theosophy and biblical prophecy. The two quickly became close friends. He later recalled that he felt like he had known her for a long time and concluded that they had met in a past life. Nettles told Applewhite their meeting had been foretold to her by extraterrestrials, persuading him that he had divine assignment. By that time, he had begun to investigate alternatives to traditional Christian doctrine, including astrology. Applewhite soon began to live with Nettles full-time. Nettles was married with 4 children at this time, but after she became close with Applewhite, her husband divorced her, and she lost custody of the children. Applewhite then permanently broke off contact with his own family, as well as he saw Nettles as his soulmate. And some of his acquaintances later recalled that she had a strong influence on him, and Rain writes that Nettles was responsible for reinforcing his emerging delusional beliefs during this period. Applewhite and Nettles then opened a bookstore known as the Christian Arts Center, which carried books from a variety of spiritual backgrounds. They also launched a venture known as No Place to teach people and teach classes on theosophy and mysticism. Also, if you didn't know what the study of theosophy is, it translates to divine wisdom. It teaches that all major religions share a single universal core of truth, and it promises the concept of universal brotherhood and focuses on the understanding of origins of the universe, karma, and also the spiritual evolution of humanity. So it's really interesting. It goes
That's very
really deep.
interesting. Yeah, that's that's a lot. That's
It's a
actually
lot, right?
so much. Just
Yeah,
so
that's what I
much.
told you.
Oh,
I have 9 pages of information, by the way, guys. It goes very deep, this rabbit hole, and I'm very excited to share all of it with you because it goes really far, and it covers everything regarding him and his life through his early periods to him and his passing. So it's really interesting.
it's crazy how you have six of these. Yeah, that's it's so that's crazy. All right.
So, speaking of the Christian Art Center, which carried books from a variety of spiritual backgrounds, this pair actually closed this business a short time later because in February of 1973, Applewhite and Nettles resolved to travel to teach others about their beliefs and drove throughout the western U.S. to do so. Lifton describes their travels as a restless, intense, often confused, peripatetic, spiritual journey. While traveling, they had little money and occasionally resorted to selling their blood or working odd jobs for much needed funds. The pair subsisted solely on bread rolls and times often camped out and sometimes did not pay for the lodging bills. So wherever they were traveling, they weren't even paying for where they were staying or anything. They would kind of just leave.
Ooh,
Yeah.
bad, bad, bad.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that though. A lot of people do that.
Yeah, so they were doing that during
That's
that
crazy.
time. During like some
I mean, I feel like a lot of people did that during the time like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the 70s, so.
Yeah.
All right. So one of their friends from Houston corresponded with them and accepted that their teachings that they visited her. So they went to visit this person in May of 1974, and she actually became the first convert. So the first person that they converted during this time. And so while traveling, Applewhite and Nettles pondered the life of Francis of Assisi and read books and works of Helena Blavatsky and Richard Bach. And they actually had their own like versions of King James Bibles with them and studied several passages from the New Testament, focusing more on the teachings of Christology, asceticism, and astrology. But Applewhite also read science fiction, including works by Robert A. Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke. But by June of 1974, Applewhite and Nettles' beliefs had solidified more into a basic outline. They concluded that they had been chosen to fulfill biblical prophecies, and that they had just been given a higher power and higher level minds than other people. They wrote a pamphlet that described Jesus' reincarnation as a Texan, a thinly veiled reference to Applewhite. Furthermore, they concluded that they were the two witnesses described in the book of Revelation and occasionally visited churches or other spiritual groups to speak of their identities, often referring to themselves as the two, end quotes, or the UFO two, end quotes. The pair believed that they would be killed and restored to life, and in view of others, transported onto a spaceship.
Oh.
So that's when we get into that. So that's where the belief starts, is that they're the UFO too. That people are trying to kill them, but if they're restored, they're going to be transported on a spaceship. So
Spaceship.
yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this event is which they refer to as the demonstration, was to prove that their claims would dismay their ideas, but what these ideas did, they were just not received properly, so it didn't turn out as well in the end of the day.
It's like they're thinking about going on a spaceship, you know? Are they watching too much like Star Wars or something?
I don't know, too many sci-fi movies. I agree. So yeah, in August of 1974, Applewhite was arrested in Harlingen, Texas for failing to return a car that he had rented in Missouri. He was extradited to St. Louis and jailed for 6 months. At the time, Applewhite maintained that he had been divinely authorized to keep the car. While jailed, he was pondered theology and subsequently abandoned discussion of occult topics in favor of extraterrestrials and evolution. Yeah, so that's
Oh my god.
yeah. So
What a
after
crazy man.
right,
Yeah.
he is crazy.
So crazy.
So after he got released, Nettles and he resolved to contact extraterrestrials and began seeking like-minded followers. So this is when they started looking for people right after this.
Okay.
So this is when they published advertisements for meetings, when they were recruiting disciples, and they also called them the crew, end quotes, at these events. So they purported to represent beings from another planet called the next level. So this is what they were calling themselves. They were saying this is the next level.
I remember them calling
Right?
themselves that. Yeah.
So they sought participants for an experiment. They claimed that those who agreed to take part in the experiment would be brought to a higher evolutionary level. But Nettles and Applewhite referred to themselves as guinea and pig. A guinea pig.
Guinea pig.
Yeah. So Applewhite described his role as a lab instructor and served as the primary speaker, while Nettles occasionally interjected clarifying remarks or corrections. The two seldom personally spoke with attendees and only talked over phone numbers which they could contact them. They then named the organization the Human Individual Metamorphosis.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many
crazy.
technicalities when it comes to them actually formulating this at the end of the day cult, right? So Applewhite also believed in the ancient astronaut hypothesis, which claimed that extraterrestrials had visited humanity in the past and placed humans on Earth that would return to collect a select few. Parts of this teaching bear similarities to the Reformed Christian concept of election, which is likely owing to Applewhite's Presbyterian upbringing. So next, we have a video of him describing his original beliefs of basically what he described his followers at this time, and basically saying this was just his overall theory and his opening to anyone who actually wanted to join him and Heaven's Gate in general. And when he talks about being in a container and leaving that container to go to the quote-unquote new world. So
very interesting video. Very interesting.
yeah,
very weird. It's crazy. It's a crazy video.
Yeah, he stares into your soul, by the way, when he's
like, come join us.
Yeah, so yeah, let's get into this video.
Let's go.
Significantly corrupted. So that no matter who tried to use that name of Jesus or of Christ or that religion, the information, seeing it as true, seeing it as real, referring to what had been said by what it takes to come into my kingdom, that fell apart, that deteriorated, that became unimportant. It's a miracle that it's still in the Gospels. It's still there. You'd be amazed. It's still there. When I'm gone this time, when we're gone, when we leave, when we go in, enter into my Father's spacecraft in order to go into service in his kingdom, very short time, if you have not by then been recycled, those who are still here, if you are permitted because of my Father's kingdom desire to have you stay a while longer, which I don't think is the case. If it were the case, the truth would deteriorate as fast as we depart. It would leave this atmosphere. I hope for your sake that you at least ponder this, that you go into the privacy of your closet. Don't ask your neighbors, your friends, what they think of this. You go see if you can connect with the purest, highest source that you might consider God and say, what about this? Is this for real? Is this for me? If it is, then give me the strength. Because as soon as you tell anyone else, they will be used as the instruments to have you not believe, to have you stay in this world and wait for heaven on earth. We hope to be of some service to you in this short time before our departure. And I say it's a very short time before our departure. So our thoughts will be of you. We hope that your thoughts will be of our Father's kingdom. Thank you.
Look at that guy's eyes. Oh my God. Oh, he literally just staring into your soul.
I told you. You disturbed?
Become a UFO person with us. Literally, like, what he's trying to do. Oh
No, yeah,
God.
that clip specifically, if you go back to his actual video and you watch that part, it is creepy.
That whole video is
That
creepy.
whole video,
Like,
all his videos they have a very...
and they're all like an hour and something too.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's crazy. Because he just like nonstop talks about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about how they actually became what they were known for, right? So let's get into how these people actually got devoted to Heaven's Gate.
Yep.
So, Applewhite and Nettles then sent advertisements to groups in California and were invited to speak to New Age devotees there in April 1975. At this meeting, they persuaded about half of the 50 attendees to follow them. They also focused on college campuses, speaking at Canada College in August. At a meeting at Waldport, Oregon, in September 1975, they had further recruitment success. About 30 people left their homes to follow the pair, prompting their interest from media to outlets. The coverage was negative. Commentators and some former members mocked the group and levels of accusations of brainwashing against Applewhite and Nettles. Balch and Taylor state that Applewhite and Nettles pressure tactics, and they also seek to only pull in devoted followers during this period. Notes that Applewhite and Nettles' teachings focused on salvation through individual growth and see the similar to the currents in the era's New Age movement. Likewise, the importance of personal choice was also emphasized. Applewhite and Nettles denied connection with the New Age movement, viewing it as a human creation.
It's crazy.
Janja Lalick, a sociologist who studies cults, attributes to their recruitment success to their eclectic mix of beliefs and the way that they deviated from typical New Age teachings. They also discussed the more literal spacecrafts while retaining familiar language. Most of their disciples were young and interested in occultism or otherwise lived outside of mainstream society. They came from a variety of religious backgrounds, including Eastern religions and Scientology. Most were well versed in New Age teachings, allowing Applewhite and Nettles to convert them easily. Because, these people were basically outsiders and just kicked to the curb.
Yeah.
So they had nowhere to go, especially, people in Scientology and things like that.
It's true.
Which is a whole nother rabbit hole that we'll get into one day, because Scientology is still to this day something that's a big topic to talk about.
It very is. Yeah, it is.
So, yeah. Applewhite thought that his followers would reach a higher level of being, changing like a caterpillar, becoming a butterfly. This example was used in almost all of his group's early literature. He contended that this would be a biological change into difference of species, casting his teaching as scientific truth in line with secular naturalism. He emphasized to his early followers that he was not speaking metaphorically, often using words biology and chemistry in his statements. But by the mid-1970s, Applewhite attempted to avoid the use of the term religion, seeing it as inferior to his science. Well, science in general, but mostly his science, right?
Yeah.
By 1975, Applewhite and Nettles had taken the names Bo and Peep. So after Guinea and Pig, they then take the name Bo Peep. They had about 70 followers during this time and saw themselves as shepherds tending a flock. Applewhite believed that the complete separation from earthly desires was a prerequisite of ascension to the next level, and emphasized passages in the New Testament in which Jesus spoke about forsaking worldly attachments. Members were consequently instructed to renounce friends, family, media, drugs, alcohol, jewelry, facial hair, and their own sexuality. Furthermore, they were the first required to adopt biblical names. Applewhite and Nettles soon told them to adopt two-syllable names that ended in "ody," consonants in the first syllable, such as Rakoti, Jamodi, and Lavodi.
Lavodi. Oh my god, what the hell?
So Applewhite stated that these names emphasized that his followers were spiritual children and that they were separate, and he separated them from their lives of their human vehicles, because he called, people's bodies and their souls human vehicles.
Yeah.
And, we're just here for the ride type of thing, right? So they usually stayed at remote campgrounds and did not speak about their beliefs, but Applewhite and Nettles ceased to have public meetings in 1975 of April and spent little time teaching doctrine to their converts. The pair also had little contact with their dispersed followers, while many of whom renounced their allegiance.
He named those people those names?
Yeah.
They got Odie. What in the world?
Okay, so here is a clip of here's an example of him calling the names of Lakota and things like that. You get to hear it firsthand from Mr. Applewhite himself. So
Let's go.
Might want to turn that down just a little bit. Great. Look at the camera, Steely. Hi, where's your normal? There. Ah, good. Okay, let's go to Dorothy. Okay, there's Dorothy, and he's even looking at the camera, aren't you, Dorothy? Stay looking. There, we got it. Okay, thank you, and let's move on over to our Sodi. Questodi, I'm sorry. There's Questodi. Hi, Questodi. Can you see the camera? There you are. That looks good. Thank you. Okay, and there's Chakoti. A lot of you all watching this film know these individuals, I'm sure, and are curious about all the things that have transpired in their lessons since you last saw them.
So that's the Cody and Dakota.
Dakota and Dakota. They don't look very happy about those names at all.
They don't. As you can see in the in that video specifically, you kind of see like their expressions aren't very fond of him doing
they're
that
not.
to them. Yeah.
They're literally not.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
I told you it was like they looked off in that clip. I was like, something's off.
Because they don't want to be called Dakota. like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on from that topic, Applewhite and Nettles feared they would be assassinated and taught their followers that their deaths would be similar to those of the two witnesses of the Book of Revelation. Balk and Taylor believed that Applewhite's prison experience and early rejection by audiences contributed to this fear. Applewhite and Nettles later explained to their followers that the former treatment by the press was a form of assassination and had fulfilled their prophecy. Applewhite took a materialistic view of the Bible, seeing it as a record of extraterrestrial contact with humanity. He drew heavily from the Book of Revelation. Although he avoided traditional theological terminology, he took a somewhat negative tone towards Christianity, and he lectured about a small number of verses and never tried to develop a system of true theology. So, yeah. But let's move on to, so that was 1975. So let's get into the early parts of 1976 and let's get into what they were doing. So Applewhite and Nettles had settled on the names Do and Ty. So as you can see, every year from 1974 to 1976, they changed their name.
That's so crazy. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Applewhite stated that these were meaningless names. But in June of 1976, they gathered their remaining followers at a Medicine Bow Route National Forest in southeastern Wyoming, promising a UFO visit. Nettles later announced that the visit had been canceled. Applewhite and Nettles then split their followers into small groups, which they referred to them as star clusters.
Clusters.
So they split them up and they called them star clusters.
We are the star clusters. Oh yeah. It's like, what in the world?
Yeah, so star clusters. In the late 1970s, so this is after that and the belief of this UFO that was promised but never amounted to anything, the group received a large sum of money, possibly from inheritance of a member or donations of followers of their income. This capital was used to rent houses, initially in Denver and later in Dallas, but Applewhite and Nettles had about 40 followers then and lived in 2 or 3 houses. The leaders usually had their own house, but the group was secretive about their lifestyle and even covering their windows, so they would go pretty far to like cover up that they were very private, as where they were living and things like that. But Applewhite and Nettles arranged their followers' lifestyle as a boot camp that would prepare them for the next level. So referring to their house as a craft, they regimented the lives of their disciples and down to the minute. Down to the disciples down to the minute. And students who were not committed to this lifestyle were encouraged to leave. Departing members were given financial assistance. Applewhite wanted quality over quantity in his followers, although he occasionally spoke about gaining many converts. Yeah, so Applewhite and Nettles sometimes made sudden, drastic changes to the group. On one occasion in Texas, they told their followers of a forthcoming visitation from extraterrestrials and instructed them to wait outside all night, at which point they informed that this had been merely a test. Members became desperate for Applewhite's approval, which he used to control them. So, again, these were just pointless promises that amounted to nothing because, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, so this is all, this whole section right here was basically just basically a 10-year period from just through the 1970s. We haven't even gotten through like the 1980s yet of how his philosophy and Christianity and things like that and just his overall beliefs change. So you're going to see how much farther they go as the years go on. So yeah, so in 1980, Applewhite and Nettles had about 80 followers, many of whom held jobs, often working with computers or as car mechanics. But in 1982, the pair allowed their disciples to call their families. So this was the first time that as followers, they could actually talk to their families because as they, they're outsiders from before, right? So they didn't they had no communication with their families. So they further relaxed their control in 1983, permitting their followers to visit relatives on Mother's Day. But they were allowed short stays and were instructed to tell their families that they were studying computers at a monastery. So their families had no idea what they were doing.
They had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, nothing at all. But this was also the same year of 1983 was also a tragic time for Applewhite as Nettles passed away. So in 1983, Nettles had an eye surgically removed as a result of cancer diagnosed several years earlier, while she lived for 2 more years, dying in 1985. Applewhite told her followers that she had traveled to the next level because she had too much energy to remain on Earth, abandoning her body to make the journey. His attempt to explain her death in the terms of the group's doctrine was successful, preventing the departure of all but one member. However, Applewhite became very depressed. He claimed that Nettles still communicated with him, but he suffered from a crisis of faith. His students supported him during this time, greatly encouraging him. He then organized a ceremony in which he symbolically married his followers. Lalick views this as an attempt to ensure unity, end quotes. Applewhite told his followers that he had been left behind by Nettles because he still had more to learn. He felt that she occupied a higher spiritual role than he did. He then began to identify her as the father, and then referred to her with male pronouns. So, yeah, that's... You see it, his doctrine goes really far after she passes away. He takes it more extremely. And I don't know if it's because of her passing away or what switched in him, but that was really interesting to me when I was doing the readings.
I thought you said you only had 6, you liar.
No, I said 9.
I said 6.
I said 9.
You said 6.
I said 9.
No, because when you go back, you can see you said 6 and I said 6.
Oh. It was 9. I think I told you earlier that it was 9. Why are you looking at me like that? Oh, she almost closed my whole page, guys.
No, I did not.
She knocked my hand and my mouse switched. So after, he called her the father and things like that, Applewhite began to emphasize a strict hierarchy, teaching that his students needed his guidance. As he needed the guidance of the next level. Zeller notes that this naturally ensured no possibility of the group's continuing if Applewhite were to die. A relationship with Applewhite was said to be the only way to salvation. He encouraged his followers to see him as Christ. The group's previous focus on individual choice was replaced with an emphasis on Applewhite's role as a mediator. Applewhite maintained some aspects of their scientific teachings, but in the 1980s, the group became more like a religion in its focus on faith and submission to authority.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Right? So... you see that he elevated himself higher now? Like now, you see how he was just teaching now, but now he's calling himself Christ, and he wants them to believe in him as the only way to their salvation and their saving. So,
No, yeah, that's crazy.
right? That was a crazy switch. So, after Nettle's death, Applewhite also altered his view of ascension. Previously, he had taught that the group would physically ascend from the earth and that death caused reincarnation, which left behind and unchanged and forced him to say that oh my gosh, tongue twister, the ascension could be spiritual. He then concluded that her spirit had traveled to a spaceship and received a new body, and that his followers and he would be the same.
She's an alien right now. She's like,
So, yeah, so in his view, the biblical heaven was actually a planet on which highly evolved being dwelt, and physical bodies were required to ascend there. Applewhite believed that once they reached the next level, they would facilitate evolution on another planet. He emphasized that Jesus, whom he believed was an extraterrestrial, came to Earth, was killed, and bodily rose from the dead before being transported onto a spaceship.
what the hell? Nah, man is crazy. He is crazy. Oh
So
my gosh.
Jesus rose from the dead and he's on a spaceship.
He's on a spaceship right now, guys.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
So,
oh my god.
right?
I don't know. It's so
I told
weird.
you, it goes really deep when you like start reading into like his actual beliefs. Like his beliefs are so interesting.
Kind of funny too.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
According to Applewhite's doctrine, Jesus was a gateway to heaven, but had found humanity unready to ascend when he first came to Earth. Applewhite then decided that an opportunity existed for humans to reach the next level every 2 millennia. So that's forever. And the early 1900s would therefore provide the first opportunity to reach the kingdom of heaven since the time of Jesus. Zeller notes that his beliefs were based on the Christian Bible, but were interpreted through the lens of belief in alien contact with humanity. Yeah, which, I mean, you could see it there. You could see the Christian influence and
Yeah.
his belief in alien contact with humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, you could see the way he went about it was very odd. Very,
Crazy man, guys.
Yeah.
Crazy man.
not very historically accurate, in my
No.
opinion, but to each their own. Oh my gosh, tongue twisters. This is crazy. Applewhite taught that he was a walk-in, a concept that he gained popularity in the New Age movement during the late 1970s. So walk-ins are said to be higher beings who took control of adult bodies to teach humanity. This concept informed Applewhite's view of resurrection. He believed that his group's souls were to be transported to a spaceship where they would enter other bodies. Applewhite abandoned the metaphor of a butterfly in favor of describing the body as a mere container, a vehicle that souls could enter and exit. This dualism may have been the product of Christology that Applewhite learned as a young man.
There it is. There it is.
Is that a spider or is that... Oh, it's a web, huh?
There's a web.
Let me turn on the bright light.
Give us 1 second, guys. 1 second. We got a spider alert. Spider alert. And you know what? I felt like I saw something like jump on me for a second, but I don't even know.
So yeah, that concludes what walk-ins are. So in the wake of Nettles' death, Applewhite became increasingly paranoid, fearing a conspiracy against his group. One member who joined in the mid-1980s recalled that Applewhite avoided any new converts, worrying that they were infiltrators. He feared a government raid on their home and spoke highly of the Jewish defenders of Masada in ancient Israel, who showed total resistance to the Roman Empire. Increasingly, he began to discuss the apocalypse, comparing the earth to an overgrown garden that was to be recycled or rebooted, and humanity to a failed experiment. So, in accordance with the garden metaphor, he stated that the earth would be spaded under, so just pushed under. And Applewhite's teaching about the earth's recycling is similar to the cyclical perspective of time found in Buddhism. Applewhite also used New Age concepts, but he differed from that movement by predicting that apocalyptic rather than utopian, changes would soon occur on Earth. He contended that most humans had been brainwashed by Lucifer, but that his followers could break free of this control. He specifically cited sexual urges as the work of Lucifer. In addition, he stated that evil extraterrestrials, who he referred to as Luciferians, sought to thwart his mission. He argued that many prominent moral teachers and advocates of political correctness were actually Luciferians. This theme emerged in 1988, possibly in response to the lurid alien abduction stories that were going up during that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In the late 1980s, the group kept a low profile. Few knew that it still existed in 1988. They mailed a document that detailed their beliefs to a variety of New Age organizations. The mailing contained information about their history and advised people to read several books, which primarily focus on Christian history and UFOs. With this exception of the 1988 document, Applewhite's group remained inconspicuous until 1992, when they recorded a 12-part series which was broadcast via satellite. This series echoed many of the teachings of the 1988 update, although it introduced a universal mind of which hearers could partake. So, over the course of this group's existence, several hundred people joined and left, right?
Yeah.
So, in the early 1990s, their membership dwindled, numbering as few as 26. So, you can see now, you see the rise and fall of his believers at this point. So, these defections gave Applewhite a sense of urgency. In May 1993, the group took a name of Total Overcomers Anonymous. They spent $30,000 to publish a full-page advertisement in USA Today that warned of catastrophic judgment to befall the earth. So its publications led to about 20 former members to rejoin the group. This, along with a series of public lectures in 1994, caused membership to double from its early and beginnings of the decades before.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So you could see that him paying for those advertisements really pushed him out there.
I feel like we should have this though.
Okay.
But that's crazy though.
In the early 1990s, Applewhite posted some of his teachings on the internet, but he was stung by the resulting criticism. That year, he first spoke to the possibility of suicide as a way to teach the next level. He explained that everything human had to be forsaken, including the human body. So before one could ascend, and that, my friends, is the organization which was then named Heaven's Gate. So that's exactly how they got the name Heaven's Gate, was because of that. So you can see how it went from next level to Heaven's Gate in that specific moment. So that is the formulation of Heaven's Gate. So from June to October of 1995, the group lived in a rural part of New Mexico. They purchased 40 acres and built a compound, which they refer to as the Earth Ship.
Wow.
Applewhite hoped to establish a monastery. This proved to be a difficult endeavor, particularly for the aging Applewhite. He was in poor health during this time. As you can see, I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and he feared that he also had cancer. So it's noted that Applewhite's active leadership of the group probably led to severe fatigue in the last years. So the winter was very cold, and they abandoned the plan afterwards. So they lived several houses. So that's when they moved to San Diego. So they got several houses, and that's when they were staying in San Diego. So the group increasingly focused on the suppression of sexual desire. Applewhite and 7 others opted for surgical castration. They initially had difficulty finding a willing surgeon, but eventually found one in Mexico. He taught that next level beings had no reproductive organs.
Wow.
But that Luciferians beings had genders. So the people that were out to get him, right, were the people who had genders. So that's why he was trying to do these surgeries so that he wasn't a part of that.
What a weirdo. Gosh.
He also cited a verse from the New Testament that said there would not be marriage in heaven. In addition, he required members to adopt similar clothing and haircuts, possibly to reinforce that they were a non-sexual family. In October 1996, the group rented a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California. That year, they recorded 2 video messages in which they offered their viewers a last chance to evacuate Earth. Applewhite now believed that Nettles was aboard a spaceship trailing the comet, that she planned to rendezvous with them. He told his followers that the vessel would transport them to an Empyrean destination and that the government conspiracy was attempting to suppress word of the craft in addition. He stated that his deceased followers would be taken by the vessel, as well as a belief that resembled the Protestant Presbyterian rapture doctrine. So how he learned was that the comet, or why he believed that it was accompanied by extraterrestrials, or why he should have believed Nettles' death would be, like with them but not known.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In March 1997, the group isolated themselves and recorded a farewell statement. Many members praised Applewhite in their final messages, so you'll see them basically saying, that they're so thankful for this opportunity and that they're so excited to go to the next level. So, yeah, so we'll definitely play those for you in a minute. Yeah, so Applewhite in their final messages, so Davis describes that they're regurgitations of dues when it comes to the gospel. Applewhite recorded a video shortly before his death in which he termed the suicides called the final exit. So he called his final video the final exit of the group and remarked, "We do, in all honesty, hate this world." And yeah, that was one of his last statements. So in this next clip, we're going to play some of the video clips from the farewells from the individuals who are part of Heaven's Gate.
We have Deadtone with us. And Deadtone, how long have you been in this classroom circumstance?
Since March of '76, that'd be 21 years.
Okay. And so you met Deadtone at that time, or did you attend a meeting? How did you find out about them?
Well, that's a long story, but suffice to say that when I heard the information, I was overwhelmed. I individually searched for Deadtone because I didn't make a meeting. And after about a month, I found him, and I've been with him ever since. Boy, that opens up a big door. You've probably heard from everyone, quite a few people before me, and they've all expressed what the class has meant to them and what they've learned in the class. But it's hard to express in human language what we know or what we feel from what we've learned in the classroom, and I'm no exception. I'm having a very difficult time, and I'll try to express exactly what I feel. Deadtone were 2 individuals that were known to, or were said to have come from the next level, being given this opportunity to go to the next level. Just the opportunity, is the gift, is just it's overwhelming, is the only word that I can come up with now.
Well, I guess that answers any other questions we would have asked you.
I didn't know that I was going to talk so much, but
no, that was very clear.
like I said, we
experience and teaching us well the ways to the next level, what we needed to know to perform and function in that level. I feel like, although I've tried to be a good member like any others, the lessons that we get and the influences that we're subjected to once we become part of the class have caused me to stumble and fall along the road many times, but my older members have always been there to lend me a helping hand and pick me up, brush me off, and help me see and understand things with so much depth and with such a compassion and caring that he's always been there for me. It just, for me, the true love of the next level, the way that can be expressed more than anything else is just seeing my older members coming here having sacrificed everything they've had in the next level, their bodies, their existence, to come here and train a class of little children to know the ways of the next level and to become like them and graduate into that level if we so desired. Words can't really express what I'm feeling, but I just feel so fortunate and so happy and so humble to be a part of that. And I so look forward to the time when we could be back together with T very shortly and rejoin.
Exciting time for us because this is the end of the class. This is everything that we've waited for. This is the end of the civilization that we talked about not only 2,000 years ago, but in prior times when we had association with members of the next level who came and tried to move up the civilization. We were all part of those classes also. So here we are. It's been a long 6,000 years, and the next level or the kingdom of God isn't something that you join and get to over a little 6 weeks course. It takes a long time, but it's prove it to them. They've never had anything to prove to us. It's always, well, if you seek us, then by learning the lessons, you will then know afterwards that the proof is in the pudding. So T and O, we owe everything to them. We're going to lay these vehicles down here shortly, and what we're doing is we're going home. We're going home to those individuals who sent us here to do this task, and this is the happiest and joyous thing that you can possibly imagine. We're going home. We've got a place to go to. Now you're going to find this old crummy vehicle in a bunk someplace that I'll be going. I'll probably be watching when you check it out and observe your responses and your reaction when you look at these vehicles. And they're all nothing but containers that we've used and borrowed for the short amount of time. So we have nothing but gratitude and joy and thankfulness to our older members for giving us this opportunity. And we're going to be able to help this human civilization for a much greater and taller perspective than you can possibly imagine. So with that, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll maybe be talking to you again. You never know.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you get to hear their farewells. I mean, do you really think that they went home, per se,
What I just said?
Yeah, like what you
I don't know, because then again, we don't know what happened when they closed their eyes, we actually don't know, but at the same time, it's crazy, it's really crazy. Like that man, like if you just look at his eyes, like zoom in on his eyes, and then he looks insane, like he does, but it's just like, how do we know what happened after they, took their lives?
Yeah.
What do we know? Like that's the confusing part, is like, what do we know? That's it. I don't know. That's just confusing.
Yeah. So shortly after their farewell videos is when the stated suicides began, and this was on March 22nd. Most members took barbiturates, masked the taste with rice pudding, and washed it down with vodka. Some of the members were found with plastic bags over their heads. They all wore identical uniforms. The uniforms consisted of Nike shoes and black uniforms with patches that read, Heaven's Gate Away Team. They all had about $6 in their shirt pockets and bag that contained clothes, daily items, and a form of identification was placed beside most bodies. The deaths occurred over 3 days. Applewhite was one of the last 4 to die. 3 assistants helped him commit suicide, then killed themselves. As anonymous tip, led by the San Diego County Sheriff's Department to search the mansion, they found 39 bodies there on March 26. It was the largest group suicide involving U.S. citizens since the 1978 mass murder-suicide of 918 Americans in Jonestown.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, so Applewhite's body was found seated on the bed of the mansion's master bedroom, and medical examiners determined that his fear of cancer had been unfounded. So now that we talked about what happened on the tragic day of March 2026, This is the exact news report and analysis from, the
So
news.
just the news, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Of when they found them all dead and stuff, so yeah.
yeah, and it actually shows them in
It does
this.
show them, yeah.
Yeah, so
They videotaped everything in there,
they
so you
did.
guys will see everything. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
9 suicide victims left identification on their bodies, and now authorities are in the midst of notifying relatives. More from ABC's Lisa Salters.
The largest mass suicide in U.S. history was indeed a well-planned event. The dead were all found lying on cots and bunk beds. They wore the same clothing, the same brand new tennis shoes, their personal belongings placed carefully by their sides. Investigators say the mass suicide occurred in stages. One group of 15, followed by another, and then a final group of 9, all had instructions on how to follow a deadly recipe.
Put the medicine in and stir it. And then eat it quickly, drink this vodka mixture, which they apparently had mixed up, and then lay back and rest quietly.
Authorities say identifying the bodies was easy once they were removed from the home. The victims all left ID. The group also left behind a videotape, an attempt to explain the question they knew the world would ask. Why?
I'm really happy that I made this choice. We're looking forward to this. We're happy and excited.
The victims were all members of a religious cult called Heaven's Gate. They believed their deaths would transport their spirits to a spaceship trailing behind the Hale-Bopp comet.
Well, we're still here, but not for long.
Along with the tape, the group also left a letter to the news media saying, quote, "By the time you receive this, we'll be gone. Several dozen of us. We came from the level above human in distant space, and we have now exited the bodies that we were wearing for our earthly task. To return to the world from whence we came, task completed."
Yeah, that concludes that story. That was the end of Heaven's Gate, as we call it. So
It's crazy. It's crazy to like read about and like to see these videos too. It's just it's weird. Like it really is like UFOs.
No, yeah, it's hard to say anything about it because it's just so tragic and sad that these people were just going through hard times and they were put in this program and were put in this doctrine and beliefs and they just didn't know better.
And it's like he was forcing them to like how they cried in those goodbye videos and stuff. Like it didn't look like they wanted to go.
Yeah.
But he was recording them the entire time, so like they didn't have a choice. So it's like they're being forced.
Yeah, so the overall basis analysis of Heaven's Gate. So a lot of people and like famous commenters speculate that Applewhite brainwashed his followers, but many academics have rejected the brainwashing and labeled it as simplification that does express the nuances of the process by which the followers were influenced. Applewhite's success in convincing his followers to commit suicide came down to 2 factors. He isolated them socially and cultivated an attitude of complete religious obedience in them. Applewhite students had a long-term commitment to him. This is why his interpretations of events appeared coherent to them. Most of the dead had been members for about 20 years, although there were a few recent converts. Yeah. So everyone who was, they were there a long time.
They were. They were. They actually
were. Yeah, they were avid participators and they were part of his program for over 20 years or more.
Which is very crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, so this concludes Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
What are we going to do next?
We're going to have to think about that. We haven't thought about it yet, so.
Yeah, but we'll surely give updates on the upcoming episode and yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening.
I'm Jason.
I'm Amelia.
And this is the Deadtone Podcast.